This is a word ending with tanween fathah, tijarah. We ignored that tanween completely when stopping. But here, hakima. We added an alif to the word that we pronounced when stopping. And there, ma'a. We actually pronounce a letter that is essentially not there. Why does this happen with tanween fathah? And how can we easily deal with this? Well, as it happens, words with tanween fathah must indeed get an alif at the end of the word. This alif is pronounced only when stopping to show that otherwise this word has tanween fathah. But it is dropped when you keep on reading. Now, this alif is called alif al-iwad, or the compensation alif, because it compensates for the tanween fathah that is normally dropped when you stop at that word. That's why it disappears when you keep on reading. That's why a word like alim with tanween fathah is alima, and hakim with tanween fathah is hakima. But this alif is only pronounced when stopping at the word. So if you keep on reading, you will simply ignore that alif. That's why we say aliman hakima, with the first alif al-iwad ignored and actually pronounce the tanween fathah, aliman hakima, since I kept on going. But when I stopped at the word hakima, I pronounced alif al-iwad normally. The same goes for afuwan ghafura. Here we have tanween with no alif, but here we have mad al-iwad or alif al-iwad with no tanween. The thing is, not all words can accept this alif at the end. So we remove it in 4 cases. Now, for the first 2 cases, we completely remove alif al-iwad, which means that we remove it in writing as well as pronunciation. And this happens if the word ends with ta marbuta, or if the word already ends with an alif, like tijaratan hadirah. So when we kept on going normally, we pronounced the tanween, tijaratan hadirah. But when we stopped, we did not pronounce any alif here whatsoever because the word ended with ta marbuta. And if the word ended with alif, like سمعنا فتى يذكرهم. So here the word ended with alif maqsura, and so we pronounced the tanween normally when we kept on reciting. But if we stopped at that word, we will pronounce the original alif, which is already a part of the word anyway. سمعنا فتى. So for these 2 cases, we completely remove alif al-iwad in writing and pronunciation. Now, for the other 2 cases, where we only remove alif al-iwad in writing, but still pronounce it. And this happens when a word ends with this hamza, or a hamza that is preceded by an alif. That's why when stopping at a word like this, we must pronounce an alif that is essentially not there, like وَمَا كَانَ لِمُؤْمِنٍ أَن يَقْتُلَ مُؤْمِنًا إِلَّا خَطَأً لَوْ يَجِدُونَ مَلْجَأً. And naturally, when we keep on reciting, we will pronounce the noon normally without the alif. لو يجدون ملجأ أو مغارات. The same happens if the word ended with hamza and it is preceded by an alif, like كمثل الذي ينعق بما لا يسمع إلا دعاء ونداء. When we kept on reciting, we pronounced the tanween normally here. But in that word where we stopped, we had to pronounce that invisible alif, alif al-iwad, even though it is not written. So there is an invisible alif when the word ends with hamza, or the word ends with a hamza that is preceded by an alif. But then remains the question, why don't we just write the alif normally to make life easier? Well, to answer this question properly, we'll need to dive a little bit deeper into the history of Arabic. This is one of the oldest manuscripts of the Quran for Surah Taha. As you can see, it has no dots or tashkil in it, since they weren't needed yet. But what else do you notice that is not there, apart from the dots and the tashkil? What about now? Yes, it is the absence of the hamza, because this symbol was not used or needed in the old conventions of Arabic writing. It was indicated using alif. Then, in the 2nd century, Al-Khalil ibn Ahmad derived a separate symbol for the hamza from the letter ayn because of how close they are in terms of makhraj to each other. But then, what does any of this have to do with the invisible alif al-iwad? Well, since Arabs didn't have a separate symbol for the hamza, both of these cases were written in the same way. They both ended with an alif. The thing is, Arabs never wrote 2 consecutive alifs, one after the other, in the same word. And so, they could write alif al-iwad normally in all cases, except when a word ended with a hamza, or alif according to their conventions. And so, they would write a single alif, but they would know that they must pronounce that alif when stopping, that they could not write. And so, this tradition was taken over in the Quran and is reflected in the Uthmani Codex. And so, that's why understanding the historical background of Arabic can in many cases explain certain rules and even help you remember them more easily. So, in a nutshell, alif al-iwad or mad al-iwad is an alif added to the end of words that have tanween fathah. We pronounce it when stopping, and we ignore it if we keep on going. There are 2 cases where this alif is removed completely and not pronounced, which is when the word ends with ta marbuta or if the word already ends with an alif. And there are 2 more cases where this alif is removed in writing only, but we actually pronounce it when stopping. And these cases are when the word ends with this hamza or the word ends with a hamza that is preceded by an alif. Thanks for watching. If you want to start learning the tajweed, then start with this playlist. And also, don't forget to check my latest book about tajweed and download the companion app. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.